This is something that happened in my own life, a story I've replayed in my mind 1,000 times, and it still makes my blood run cold. It all started with the faint, crinkling sound of a single piece of paper. A check that was supposed to be my salvation, but instead became the catalyst for my sister's ultimate ruin. The crisp white envelope from the insurance company sat on the polished mahogany of my parents' dining table, already torn open, its contents, my future, my recovery, my peace of mind, stolen before I ever even knew it had arrived. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The physical therapist's office in downtown Seattle always smelled the same, a sterile fusion of rubbing alcohol and faint floral air freshener. It was a scent I'd come to associate with a deep, grinding pain in my left femur, a constant, unwelcome reminder of the night. A distracted driver ran a red light and turned my Honda Civic into a mangled accordion of steel and glass. For 3 months, my life had been a monotonous cycle of appointments like this one, each session a slow, agonizing attempt to coax my shattered leg back into something resembling normal function. I was 26, working as a junior graphic designer, and my entire world had shrunk to the 4 walls of my parents' house in Ballard, where I was staying during my recovery. My savings were gone, bled dry by co-payments and prescriptions that my insurance only partially covered. My one beacon of hope, the single bright light at the end of this dark, painful tunnel, was the settlement. $27,000. It wasn't a lottery win. It was a precise calculation of my medical debt, my lost wages, and a modest sum for the pain that woke me up every night. It was the money that would let me get my own apartment again, pay off the looming hospital bills, and finally, breathe. Any day now, Chloe. My lawyer, a kind but perpetually busy man named Mr. Davies, had said on our last call, "The check from Northgate Insurance is in the mail. It's heading to your parents' address as requested. Should be there by the end of the week." That was 2 weeks ago. Every day since, I'd hobbled to the front door, my heart thudding in a pathetic rhythm of hope and disappointment as I sifted through junk mail and bills. Nothing. My sister Jessica, who also lived at home, would watch me from the living room sofa, a smirk playing on her lips. At 30, Jessica had mastered the art of effortless living, a skill funded primarily by our parents, who had always viewed her with a kind of rose-tinted adoration they never quite afforded me. While I was the responsible one, the one who moved out at 19 and meticulously built a life for myself, Jessica was the charming prodigal daughter who could do no wrong. Her credit card debt was just a temporary setback, and her inability to hold a job for more than 6 months was because she was still finding her passion. "Waiting for your big payday?" she'd taunt, scrolling through her phone. "Don't spend it all in one place." I'd ignore her. The familiar sting of her casual cruelty, just another ache to add to the list. This morning, after another grueling session of stretching that left my leg trembling, I decided to call Mr. Davies again. His paralegal, a woman with a brisk, no-nonsense voice, put me on hold. When she returned, her tone was different, confused. "Ms. Albright, according to our records, Northgate Insurance issued and mailed that check 3 weeks ago," she said, and according to their system, it was cashed 12 days ago. The air in my lungs turned to ice. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "Cashed? What do you mean, cashed? I never received it. I've been checking the mail every single day." "It was deposited via a mobile banking app," she explained, a hint of professional sympathy in her voice. "I can request a copy of the processed check from the insurance company front and back, but it might take a few business days. It will show the endorsement signature and the account it was deposited into." I hung up the phone, a cold, sickening dread coiling in my stomach. Cashed. The word echoed in the sudden silence of the house. My parents were at work. Where was Jessica? I pushed myself up, my crutches clattering against the hardwood floor, and moved through the house. Her room was at the far end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar. Pinned to a corkboard above her messy desk was a postcard. It was a picture of a white sand beach and impossibly blue water. The postmark was from Cancun. On her nightstand, next to a half-empty wine glass, was a receipt from a high-end boutique in the city, Bellevue Square, a purse, $800. But Jessica didn't have a job. She was perpetually, theatrically broke. My mind started racing, connecting dots I hadn't even seen before. Her smug little comments, her sudden, unexplained shopping spree. The trip to Mexico she'd vaguely mentioned, funded by a supposed freelance gig she was always cagey about. The mail. I had been checking the mail every day, but I wasn't always the first one to it. Jessica worked from home, which really meant she spent her days on the couch. She was always there when the mail carrier came. A wave of nausea washed over me. No, it couldn't be. It was my sister. For all her flaws, for all her petty jealousies, she wouldn't do something like this. She couldn't. It was monstrous. It was unthinkable. I hobbled back to the living room, my legs screaming in protest, and sat down heavily on the couch. The dread in my gut was hardening into a cold, heavy stone of certainty. I thought back to the past 2 weeks. I remembered coming home from physical therapy one afternoon to find Jessica humming, packing a suitcase. "Quick trip with a friend," she'd chirped. "Last-minute deal, you know me, so spontaneous." I had been too wrapped up in my own pain to question it. I remembered her showing off the new purse a few days ago, swinging it from her shoulder. "Treated myself," she had announced to our mother, who had beamed at her. "It's important to have nice things." Every memory was now tainted, every casual remark, every smirk recontextualized into a portrait of breathtaking betrayal. She had watched me. She had watched me struggle to get out of bed, watched me wince in pain with every step, watched me anxiously check the mail every day for the money that was supposed to fix my life, all while knowing she had already stolen it. She had taken my salvation and used it to buy a vacation and a designer handbag. The full weight of it finally hit me, not with a crash, but with a terrifying, silent clarity. My own sister had looked at my broken body and my desperate situation and had seen nothing but an opportunity. And in that moment, sitting alone in the quiet house, the physical pain in my leg was nothing compared to the jagged, gaping wound she had just torn open in my soul. A week later, the email I had been waiting for arrived. It was from Mr. Davies' office, with a PDF attachment simply titled "Processed Check." My hands trembled as I clicked it open. The image loaded, a grainy but clear scan of the front of the check for $27,000 made out to me Chloe Albright. Then I scrolled down to the second page, the back of the check. There it was, my signature, except it wasn't my signature. It was a clumsy, almost childish forgery. The C, too loopy, the T, crossed with a hesitant stroke. It was the kind of forgery someone would attempt if they'd seen your signature 100 times, but never bothered to truly study it. And below the forged signature, in the space for the deposit information, were the neatly printed digits of a bank account number. A Bank of America account? I used Chase. My sister Jessica used Bank of America. The screen blurred as rage, and a profound sense of violation burned behind my eyes. This was it. The irrefutable black and white proof, the smoking gun. I took a deep, shuddering breath, my mind clearing as the emotional fog was scorched away by a cold, hard resolve. The question was no longer if she did it. The only question left was what I was going to do about it. My first instinct was to confront her, to scream, to wave the damning PDF in her face and watch her crumble. I imagined the scene vividly, her face paling, her eyes darting around for an escape, the lies catching in her throat, but I quickly dismissed the idea. A confrontation would only give her a chance to spin a narrative, to lie, to manipulate. She was an expert at that. She'd cry, she'd deny, she'd twist my words and accuse me of being paranoid and crazy from the pain medication, and my parents, her ever-loyal enablers, would fall for it. They would want to keep the peace. They'd urge me to forgive, to move on, to not tear the family apart over just money. No, a simple confrontation was not enough. She hadn't just stolen money. She had betrayed my trust in the most profound way imaginable, exploiting my vulnerability at the lowest point in my life. She didn't deserve a dramatic scene. She deserved consequences. Real, unavoidable, public consequences. That evening, I waited until we were all at the dinner table. My father was talking about his day at work. My mother was fussing over the roasted chicken. And Jessica was scrolling through her phone, occasionally showing my mom a picture from her Cancun trip. The casual domesticity of it all was sickening. I calmly placed my fork down. The clink of metal on ceramic cutting through the conversation. "Has anyone seen a piece of mail for me?" I asked, keeping my voice even, almost detached. "From Northgate Insurance?" It was supposed to be a rather large check. Jessica didn't even look up from her phone. "Nope, haven't seen anything." My mother frowned. "Honey, are you sure you didn't misplace it? You've been a bit forgetful since the accident." "I'm sure, Mom," I said, my eyes fixed on my sister, because my lawyer just confirmed that the check was delivered here 3 weeks ago, and it was cashed. That got Jessica's attention. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with a flicker of panic before being quickly masked by a look of innocent confusion. "Cashed? How is that possible if you never got it?" she asked, her voice a pitch too high. "That's what I'm trying to figure out," I replied, letting the silence hang in the air for a moment. "Someone would have had to get the check from our mailbox, forge my signature, and deposit it into their own bank account. It's a federal crime, you know. Mail fraud, forgery." I watched her face. Her mask was perfect. She looked shocked, outraged on my behalf. "Oh my God, Chloe, you think someone stole it? From our mailbox? We should call the police." It was a masterful performance. She was already setting up her defense, positioning herself as the concerned sister. My parents were immediately hooked. My father started talking about neighborhood crime, about installing a locking mailbox. My mother looked horrified, already fretting about identity theft. They completely bought it. They looked at me, at their injured daughter, who had just been the victim of a serious crime, and their first instinct was to believe the lies of their other daughter, the true culprit sitting right there at the table. I saw the smugness in Jessica's eyes, the faint, triumphant curl of her lip as she realized she was in the clear. She believed she had me. She believed she was untouchable. And in that moment, seeing her sit there, wrapped in the protective blanket of our parents' delusion, I felt utterly, completely alone. But the isolation didn't break me. It forged the pain and betrayal into something new, something cold and sharp and patient. The law was on my side, and I had the proof. This was no longer just about getting my money back. This was about dismantling the entire glittering facade of her perfect, charming life, piece by damning piece, in a forum where our parents' opinions meant absolutely nothing. This was war, and I was going to be the one to choose the battlefield. The days that followed were a masterclass in gaslighting. Jessica was relentlessly, suffocatingly supportive. She'd bring me tea, fluff my pillows, and offer to drive me to my physical therapy appointments, all with a look of deep, sisterly concern etched on her face. "Any news on the check, sweetie?" she'd ask daily. "I just can't believe someone would do that to you. It's just so evil." Each word was a tiny, poisonous dart, designed to make me feel crazy, to make me doubt the evidence I held in my hands. Our parents, meanwhile, treated me with a gentle, pitying condescension. They suggested the stress was getting to me, that maybe I'd endorsed the check in a painkiller-induced haze and mailed it to the wrong place. "These things happen, Chloe," my father said, patting my shoulder. "Your mind has been through a trauma." They saw a fragile victim. They had no idea they were looking at a strategist. Every night, after they went to bed, I was at my laptop, my leg propped up on a stool, the glow of the screen illuminating my face in the dark. I was building my case. I started with the check itself. Step 1 was getting an official, certified copy from the insurance company. It took 3 phone calls, a formal written request citing the Washington State Criminal Code for forgery, and an email from Mr. Davies' office. But a week later, a notarized copy arrived by certified mail. I signed for it myself, making sure Jessica was out of the house. Step 2 was the bank. Armed with the routing and account number from the back of the check, I needed to prove that account belonged to Jessica. This was harder. Banks don't just hand out private information. I spent hours on legal forms, learning about subpoenas and discovery. It became clear that to get that information, I needed an official investigation. So, the next day, I took a ride share to the Seattle Police Department's North Precinct. I sat in a hard plastic chair under flickering fluorescent lights, clutching a manila folder containing my evidence, and filed a police report for mail fraud, forgery, and theft. The officer who took my statement was professional, but looked weary, as if he'd heard 1,000 stories of family betrayal. He took my evidence, gave me a case number, and told me not to get my hopes up. "These things can take months, if they go anywhere at all," he warned. "The prosecutor's office is swamped." I knew he was right. I couldn't rely on the criminal justice system to move at the speed my medical bills required, but the police report served another purpose. It was an official record. It was another brick in the wall of evidence I was constructing. It was the document I needed. With an active police case number, I could now legally compel the bank to cooperate. My next stop was Bank of America. Not as a customer, but as a crime victim. I went to a large branch downtown and asked to speak to the branch manager in their fraud department. I presented the police report number and the notarized copy of the fraudulent check. I explained calmly and logically that their bank had accepted a forged and stolen financial instrument and deposited it into one of their accounts. I wasn't accusatory, I was factual. I framed it as a problem we needed to solve together. It worked. After an hour of phone calls to their corporate security division, the manager confirmed it. The account number did, in fact, belong to Jessica L. Albright. He couldn't give me copies of her statements due to privacy laws, but he provided a signed, notarized affidavit confirming the account ownership and the exact date and time of the $27,000 mobile deposit. I thanked him, my face a neutral mask, but inside I was soaring. This was the linchpin, the undeniable link. That night, Jessica came home flaunting a new purchase. It was a brand new, top-of-the-line laptop, the kind used by professional designers. My kind. She unboxed it on the kitchen island, her voice dripping with condescending pity. "I just feel so terrible for you, Chloe, with your whole situation. I know your old laptop is so slow, and since I'm doing so well with my freelance work, I decided to upgrade. Maybe when you get back on your feet, you can get one of these too." She was taunting me, using my money to buy the tools of my own profession and dangling them in front of my face. I looked at the sleek silver machine, then back at her smug, smiling face. The last vestige of sisterly sentiment in my heart withered and died, turning to ash. All I felt was a cold, pure, clarifying rage. This would not be settled behind closed doors. This would not be resolved with a tearful private confession. She wanted to humiliate me, to flaunt her power, to rub my nose in her victory. Fine. Then I would destroy her in the most public way I could. I didn't want the police to quietly arrest her months from now. I wanted to stand in a room in front of a judge and lay out her crimes for the world to see. The next morning, I downloaded the forms for King County Small Claims Court. The limit was $10,000, which meant I couldn't sue for the full amount, but it didn't matter. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the judgment. I filled out the paperwork, suing Jessica L. Albright for the maximum allowed amount for fraudulent conversion of funds. I paid the filing fee with the last of my credit. 2 weeks later, a uniformed sheriff's deputy walked up the driveway of my parents' house. I watched through the window as he handed a stunned Jessica an official court summons. The look on her face, a cocktail of shock, indignation, and pure, undiluted fear, was the first real return on my investment. The war had officially begun. The summons sent a shockwave through the house. The fragile peace my parents had tried to maintain shattered instantly. Jessica, predictably, flew into a theatrical rage. She stormed into my room, waving the papers in my face, her voice a shrill cry of disbelief. "What is this, Chloe? Are you insane? You're suing me? Your own sister?" I looked up from my book, my expression placid. "Yes, I'm suing you for the money you stole from me. The $10,000 is just a down payment on the $27,000 you owe." "I didn't steal anything," she shrieked, tears of fury welling in her eyes. "You're delusional. The painkillers have rotted your brain." My parents rushed in, drawn by the shouting. They saw Jessica's tears and my calm demeanor and immediately fell into their familiar roles. My father looked at me with deep disappointment. "Chloe, this has gone too far. You file a police report against your sister, and now you're dragging her to court? You are tearing this family apart over a misplaced check." "It wasn't misplaced," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "It was stolen, forged, and deposited into her Bank of America account on October 12th at 2:15 p.m., the account she used to pay for her trip to Cancun and an $800 purse." I was met with a wall of denial. Jessica sobbed that I was making it all up, that I was jealous of her, and always had been. My mother wrapped an arm around her, glaring at me. "Your sister would never do that. Apologize to her right now, Chloe." It was then I realized the true depth of their delusion. They weren't just mistaken, they were willfully blind. They had built their family narrative around Jessica the golden child, and me, the responsible but dull one. The idea that their perfect daughter could be a common thief was so antithetical to their worldview that their minds simply refused to accept it. My evidence, my logic, it meant nothing to them. "There's nothing to apologize for," I said, standing up on my good leg, using a crutch for support. "I will see her in court. You're both welcome to attend and watch her explain it to the judge." From that day on, the house became a frozen tundra of passive aggression. My parents gave me the silent treatment, communicating only in terse, necessary phrases. Jessica would smirk at me when she thought no one was looking, confident that she would win. She saw this as just another family squabble, a drama she could navigate with tears and manipulation. She had no idea what I was preparing. She thought I was an amateur. She was about to face a professional. I spent the next month living and breathing small claims court procedure. I watched YouTube videos made by lawyers, read articles on how to present evidence, and practiced my opening and closing statements in front of a mirror. I organized my evidence into a neat, tabbed binder. Tab A, the notarized copy of the check, front and back, with the forged signature highlighted. Tab B, the affidavit from Bank of America confirming account ownership and the mobile deposit details. Tab C, my own bank statements showing no such deposit. Tab D, a printout of the police report. Tab E, this was my masterpiece. I had gone through Jessica's social media with a fine-toothed comb. I printed out time-stamped photos from her Instagram, her posing on the beach in Cancun, dated October 15th, 3 days after she stole my money. Her showing off her new purse, dated October 20th. I even found the dealership's Facebook page, where they'd posted a picture of her beaming next to her brand new Mazda purchased on October 25th. Underneath it, I placed a copy of the car loan application she'd foolishly left on the kitchen counter, which clearly showed a $5,000 down payment. Jessica, meanwhile, did nothing to prepare. I overheard her on the phone with a friend laughing about it. "It's just small claims court. It's like Judge Judy. My crazy sister is going to go in there with her wild accusations, and the judge will tell her to grow up. It'll be so embarrassing for her." She hadn't even hired a lawyer, which was allowed, but not common in small claims. Her arrogance was going to be her downfall. She believed the force of her personality and her well-practiced victim act would be enough. She was walking into a legal ambush, and she didn't even see it coming. The day of court arrived. It was a gray, drizzly Seattle morning. My parents insisted on coming to support the family. I knew it meant they were there to support Jessica. I wore a simple black blazer and slacks, my hair pulled back neatly. I looked serious, credible. Jessica arrived in a bright, trendy outfit, as if she were going to brunch. She sat between my parents, whispering and occasionally shooting me a pitying look. When our case was called Albright v. Albright, we moved to the front of the small courtroom. It was presided over by a sharp-eyed, older female judge. She looked at us over her glasses, her expression unreadable. "Plaintiff, you may begin." I stood up, my binder in hand, and walked to the podium. My leg ached, but I ignored it. I laid out the facts, my voice clear and steady, devoid of emotion. I told the story of the accident, the settlement, the missing check. Then I began to present my evidence. "Your Honor, I offer Plaintiff's Exhibit A. This is a notarized copy of the settlement check. As you can see, it is endorsed with a signature that is not my own." I handed a copy to the bailiff, who gave it to the judge, and another to Jessica. Jessica glanced at it and scoffed. "Now, Exhibit B," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "This is a notarized affidavit from Bank of America, confirming that the account number on the back of that check, the account into which the funds were deposited, belongs to the defendant, Ms. Jessica Albright." I saw the judge's eyebrows raise slightly. I saw Jessica's smirk falter. I saw my parents shift uncomfortably in their seats. I kept going, methodically, relentlessly. I presented the police report. I presented my bank statements. And then I moved in for the kill. "Your Honor, I now present Exhibit E. These are a series of time-stamped photographs from the defendant's own social media accounts, posted in the days and weeks immediately following the theft of my settlement funds." I walked the judge through it. Here is the defendant in Cancun, Mexico, 3 days after the deposit. Here she is with a new designer purse, and here she is taking possession of a new car, for which she made a $5,000 down payment, all while having no verifiable source of income. The courtroom was silent. The judge looked from the photos to a now pale Jessica. My parents looked like they had been turned to stone. "Defendant," the judge said, her voice like ice, "do you have a response to this evidence?" Jessica stood up, flustered. All her practiced charm was gone. "She's lying. She's making it all up. She gave me the money as a gift. She said I could have it because she felt sorry for me, and now she's changed her mind." The lie was so audacious, so pathetic, that a small laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. The judge's eyes narrowed on my sister. "So, your testimony is that your incapacitated sister, who was in massive medical debt, gifted you her entire $27,000 settlement, and you have no proof of this? No card? No letter? No text message?" We had a verbal agreement," Jessica stammered, her voice cracking. "I see," the judge said, her tone leaving no doubt that she did not in fact see. She looked at the evidence laid out before her, then back at Jessica, whose face had crumpled into a mask of pathetic desperation. The judge's gaze was withering. I have a forged check deposited into your account and a sudden, lavish spending spree by you immediately afterward. What I do not have is a single shred of evidence to support your fantastic story of a gift." She picked up her gavel. "Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $10,000 plus court costs. I will be issuing this judgment in writing, and I strongly suggest the defendant make arrangements to pay the remaining $17,000 because I am also referring this case, along with all the evidence presented here today, to the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office for criminal investigation." The sound of the gavel striking the wood echoed like a gunshot. Jessica stared, her mouth agape, as if she couldn't comprehend what had just happened. My mother let out a small sob. My father just stared at the floor. I didn't look at any of them. I just gathered my papers, gave the judge a respectful nod, and walked out of the courtroom, the rhythmic tap of my crutch on the marble floor. The only sound I made. The money was just the beginning. The public record, the criminal referral, the utter, undeniable humiliation, that was the real victory. I had taken her lies and dragged them into the light, and they had disintegrated on contact. The aftermath was as devastating as I had planned. The court judgment was a public record. The criminal investigation, though it moved at a snail's pace, hung over Jessica's head like the sword of Damocles. My parents were forced to confront the truth in a way they never would have in the privacy of their own home. Their world had been rocked, their perfect daughter exposed as a common criminal in a court of law. They couldn't spin this. They couldn't deny it. The judgment was in black and white. They approached me a week later, their faces etched with a mixture of shame and sorrow. They offered to pay me the full $27,000 immediately to make this all go away. "It's not your debt to pay," I told them, my voice flat. "It's hers, and this isn't going away." I moved out the following week. I used the initial $10,000 from the judgment, which my parents paid on Jessica's behalf to avoid her wages being garnished, to get a small apartment in Capitol Hill, close to my physical therapy center. The independence was intoxicating. For the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own life again. Jessica was forced to get a real job, a humiliating position at a call center, as the court had mandated a payment plan for the remaining $17,000. Every month for the next 2 years, a check would arrive in my mailbox. Not a settlement check full of hope, but a restitution check full of her defeat. Each one was a reminder of my victory and of her crime. Our family was irrevocably broken. Holiday gatherings became tense, silent affairs that I eventually stopped attending. The easy, comfortable fabric of our shared history had been shredded, and there was no stitching it back together. My parents tried, in their own clumsy way, to apologize, but they could never truly understand the depth of the betrayal. They mourned the loss of the happy family they thought they had. I mourned the loss of the sister I thought I had. Today, years later, my leg is mostly healed. I have a slight limp on rainy days, a permanent souvenir of the accident. I have my own successful graphic design business, a life I built for myself, on my own terms. The final restitution check from Jessica arrived about a year ago. It was for a paltry sum of $47.52, the final odd number in a long string of payments. I held it in my hands for a long time, looking not at the amount, but at her signature on the memo line. It was no longer the confident, loopy script of my sister, but the cramped, bitter handwriting of a stranger. They say forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, but I found that justice is a foundation you build for yourself. Brick by painful brick, she stole my money, my security, and a piece of my faith in the world. And in return, I took the only thing she ever truly valued, her perfect, unearned image. The end.